The fluorescent lights of Pinehill Market, a neighborhood convenience store, flickered slightly above the aisles as late afternoon customers shuffled in. The air smelled faintly of fried chicken from the deli corner, mixed with the scent of fresh bread and detergent. It was just another ordinary Thursday, except for what was about to unfold. 14-year-old Jamal Evans stepped inside, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his school uniform still crisp from the day. He had stopped at the store on his way home to pick up a pack of pencils and a bottle of water. Jamal was the kind of kid teachers described as polite and studious, with a quiet smile that rarely left his face. But today, his smile was cautious. He knew from experience that the store's manager, Mr. Richards, always seemed to keep a sharp eye on him whenever he walked in. Mr. Richards was a middle-aged man with a stiff posture, his pressed shirt tucked into belted slacks, and an air of authority that clung to him like his cologne. From behind the counter, his eyes followed Jamal immediately, narrowing as though the boy's very presence confirmed some unspoken suspicion. As Jamal walked down the stationery aisle, Mr. Richards emerged, pretending to tidy a shelf but never taking his gaze off the boy. A couple of customers noticed too, the kind of silent, knowing glance that said, "Here we go again." Jamal grabbed the pencils and made his way toward the refrigerated section for water. But before he could, Mr. Richards stepped directly into his path, blocking him like a guard at a checkpoint. "All right, young man," Richards barked, his voice sharp enough to turn heads. "Let's see what you've stuffed in that backpack of yours." The store went still. Shoppers froze in their tracks, some craning their necks, others pretending not to listen while straining to hear every word. Jamal blinked, confused. "Excuse me, sir. I haven't taken anything. I just got here." Richard scoffed. "Don't play dumb with me. I saw you sneaking around. You kids think you're slick, but I've been in this business long enough to spot a thief." The word hung in the air like a slap. "Thief." Jamal's chest tightened, his face flushing hot with embarrassment. He glanced around. The older woman by the fruit section shook her head disapprovingly. A man near the checkout muttered something under his breath, and a couple of teenagers snickered. "I didn't take anything," Jamal repeated, his voice lower this time, tinged with desperation. He clutched his backpack strap, his knuckles white. Richard smirked, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They all say that. You think because you're just a kid, I'm going to let you get away with it? Not in my store." A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. The opposing attorney, no, not an attorney, but the kind of customer who thrived on drama, leaned on his cart with grin, enjoying the spectacle. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances, unwilling to intervene but unwilling to look away. Jamal's heart pounded. Every second felt like an hour, the weight of the accusations pressing down harder than the strap on his shoulder. He wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor tiles. But instead, he forced himself to stand tall, though his trembling hands betrayed him. "Sir, I didn't steal anything," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "You can check my bag if you want, but please don't call me a thief. I've done nothing wrong." His plea only fueled Richards's arrogance. "You don't get to tell me what to do in my store. I've had enough of punks like you. Empty that bag right now, or I'll call the police and let them handle you." Gasps echoed softly. The threat of the police changed the atmosphere immediately. A few customers shuffled nervously, already imagining the worst outcome for a young black boy accused in public. Jamal froze, caught between humiliation and fear, his dignity unraveling under the fluorescent glare. In that moment, Richards leaned in closer, his tone dripping with disdain. "People like you have no place around here. You walk in already guilty." The word stung more than the accusation itself. Jamal's eyes burned, but he swallowed hard, refusing to let tears fall. He stood in silence, surrounded by judgmental stares, his innocence drowned out by the cruel certainty of a man with power and a platform. The crowd watched, holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence inside Pinehill Market shattered as Mr. Richards's voice boomed across the aisles. "Everyone, gather round. We got ourselves a little shoplifter here." Heads turned. Carts rolled to a stop, and conversations died in mid-sentence. Jamal felt his stomach drop. His face burned under the fluorescent lights as though a spotlight had been turned on him. "I said empty that bag." Richards barked again, pointing at the floor in front of Jamal, like a judge demanding evidence. Jamal's fingers twitched nervously against his backpack strap. The crowd closed in, not physically, but with their stares, with their whispers, with the invisible pressure of judgment. A mother pulled her child closer, as though Jamal were dangerous. A man in a leather jacket muttered, "Typical," shaking his head with disgust. "Sir," Jamal whispered, barely able to find his voice, "I haven't done anything. Please don't do this in front of everyone. But Richards was enjoying himself, his chest puffed up with self-righteous power. If you got nothing to hide, then prove it. Open the bag. Now. The words echoed. For a brief moment, Jamal considered it, dumping his school books and crumpled lunch bag onto the floor just to silence the accusation. But deep inside, a fire stirred. Why should he humiliate himself to prove innocence? Why should he bow down to a man who had already decided he was guilty the second he walked through the door? I don't have to show you anything, Jamal said, a little louder this time. His voice cracked, but it carried enough defiance to ripple through the crowd. I'm not a thief. I came in to buy pencils and water. That's it. Gasps slipped out among the onlookers. Someone whispered, he's talking back. Another muttered, that won't end well. Richards' face twisted into a scowl. Oh, so now you've got an attitude? That's exactly what thieves do. They lie, then they act tough when they're caught. Fine. You don't want to empty it yourself? Then I'll make sure the police do it for you. He reached for the phone behind the counter. The sound of the receiver being lifted sent a jolt of panic through Jamal's veins. He could already see it. Flashing lights outside, rough hands on his wrists, his mother's horrified face when she arrived. No, wait! Jamal cried out, stepping forward. His voice cracked like thunder in the quiet store. Please don't call them. Please. The plea came out raw, unfiltered, and full of fear. Every customer felt it. The kind of fear that didn't come from guilt, but from knowing what could happen once the police were involved. A couple of people shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the imbalance of power on display. But others weren't so sympathetic. A heavy-set man near the checkout scoffed. If he's innocent, what's he so scared of? Let the cops come. Let them teach him a lesson. Yeah. Another chimed in. Probably not his first time doing this. Each word cut deeper. Jamal's hands trembled, but he clenched them into fists at his sides. He wanted to scream, to shout that he wasn't a criminal, that he didn't deserve this circus of shame. But his throat tightened. His heart raced. Tell you what, Richard said, lowering the phone but keeping it close. His eyes gleamed with a cruel satisfaction. You've got one last chance to clear your name. Prove to everyone here that you're not a thief. Empty the bag, or you'll leave the store in handcuffs. The crowd leaned in, hungry for conclusion. Children peeked out from behind their mothers. Teenagers held up their phones, recording. Somewhere in the back, a woman muttered, Lord, this isn't right. But her voice was too soft to shift the tide. Jamal's chest heaved as he looked around. Every eye was on him, not with compassion, but with suspicion. No one saw a boy. They saw an accusation. They saw a stereotype. They saw guilt written on skin he had no power to change. His hands gripped the zipper of his bag. The room seemed to spin as he slowly slid it open. The sound of the zipper rasping filled the silence like a blade scraping metal. He pulled out his notebooks, his math textbook, a pack of gum, and his lunch wrapper. One by one, he laid them on the floor, his dignity falling with them. Where's the stolen stuff? Richards demanded. That's everything, Jamal whispered. His voice cracked, barely audible. The silence that followed was suffocating. There was no stolen candy, no unpaid soda, no hidden electronics, just the belongings of a child on his way home from school. And yet, no one clapped. No one apologized. Instead, suspicion lingered in the air. The damage was done. The word thief had already been planted in their minds, and innocence wasn't enough to erase it. Jamal slowly gathered his things, blinking back tears that threatened to betray him. He wanted to shout, see? I told you. But he knew it wouldn't matter. To them, he had already been tried, convicted, and labeled. The humiliation was complete. And the worst part? The night was far from over. The sharp wail of sirens cut through the night air minutes later, and Jamal's heart nearly leapt out of his chest. Red and blue lights painted the glass doors of Pinehill Market. Customers craned their necks, whispering excitedly as if a free show had just begun. 2 officers strode inside, boots heavy on the tile, hands resting on their belts. Their presence filled the store instantly. Jamal shrank back toward the end of the counter, his chest heaving as though every breath might be his last. That's him, Mr. Richards announced with a triumphant finger, like a hunter presenting his prize. Caught him trying to walk out without paying. Had the nerve to argue in front of everyone. Thought he could play the victim. The taller officer's eyes landed on Jamal, scanning him like a scanner searching for flaws. You, he said sharply, backpack on the ground. Hand where I can see them. Jamal froze. The command struck like lightning, rooting him in place. His palms felt slick with sweat, but he forced them upward slowly, terrified of moving too fast. "Officer, please," he stammered. "I didn't steal anything. I swear." The shorter officer barked. "We'll decide that. Bag on the floor. Now." Whispers rippled through the crowd. A woman murmured, "Oh, Lord," while a teenager chuckled under his breath. Phones were out again, red recording lights blinking like tiny, merciless eyes. With trembling hands, Jamal lowered his backpack to the floor. It already lay half open from Richards' forced inspection earlier, books and notebooks peeking out. But the officers didn't even look at the bag before one of them grabbed Jamal's arm and spun him toward the counter. "Hey, wait!" Jamal cried, his voice cracking. "I didn't." Cold steel snapped shut around his wrists. The handcuffs bit into his skin, cutting off circulation. The crowd gasped, but not out of pity, more like thrill. For them, it was entertainment. For Jamal, it was a nightmare unfolding in real time. "Good job, officers," Richard said smugly, crossing his arms. Maybe now he'll think twice before pulling the stunt again. But something shifted then. A voice rose from the back, firm, trembling with outrage. "Hold on just a second." All eyes turned as an older woman stepped forward. Mrs. Green, one of the longest-standing residents in the neighborhood, pushed past a row of carts. Her cane clicked against the tile as she moved closer. "I saw the whole thing," she said, her eyes locked on the officers. "That boy didn't steal a thing. Richards embarrassed him in front of everyone, made him empty his bag, and you all saw what was in it. Books, lunch, that's all. And now you're arresting him for what? For being scared." The taller officer hesitated, glancing at Richards, then at Mrs. Green. The room buzzed with unease. Some customers nodded quietly, confirming her words. Others stayed silent, unwilling to cross Richards or the badge. "Ma'am," the shorter officer said curtly, "we appreciate your concern, but we have procedures." He matched the description of a suspicious individual, and the store manager. "Manager?" Mrs. Green snapped, her voice surprisingly sharp for her age. "Don't give me that. This isn't about procedures. This is about prejudice. You're not blind. You saw his bag was empty of anything stolen. But here you are, cuffing him anyway. Shame on you." A murmur spread through the crowd. For the first time, doubt flickered in the air. People who had silently enjoyed the spectacle now shifted uncomfortably, some lowering their phones. Jamal blinked hard, fighting back tears as Mrs. Green's defense washed over him. He had never felt so powerless, so stripped of dignity, and yet, in that moment, he realized someone finally saw him. The taller officer cleared his throat. "Let's step outside," he muttered, tugging Jamal toward the door. Mrs. Green followed, her cane tapping furiously. "I'm not letting this slide. You boys better think real hard about what message you're sending this neighborhood." Outside, the night air hit Jamal like a slap. He shivered as the officers guided him toward the squad car. The handcuffs clinked with each step, the sound searing into his mind like a brand. Across the parking lot, curious bystanders had gathered, phones raised high to capture the scene. "Please," Jamal whispered again, his voice breaking. "I didn't do anything. I just wanted to buy pencils." The taller officer paused, eyes flicking to the crowd, recording every second. His jaw tightened. Maybe it was the weight of Mrs. Green's words, or the realization that the world was watching. Slowly, he sighed and exchanged a glance with his partner. "Take the cuffs off," he muttered. "What?" the shorter officer snapped. "You heard me." Reluctantly, the cuffs clicked open, leaving red marks etched into Jamal's skin. He rubbed his wrists, swallowing hard, his eyes darting between the officers and the crowd. "You're free to go," the taller one said stiffly. "But don't cause any more trouble." Trouble. That was the word they chose, like Jamal had brought this on himself. As the squad car lights dimmed and the crowd began to disperse, Jamal stood frozen, the weight of humiliation still crushing him. He wasn't free. Not really. The damage was done. And deep down, he knew this wasn't the end. The next morning, Pinehill Market was buzzing, not with customers, but with whispers. Overnight, the video of Jamal's humiliation had hit social media. Clips showed him being handcuffed, his face streaked with sweat and fear, while Mr. Richards stood smirking in the background. By sunrise, the video had already gathered thousands of views. By noon, tens of thousands. And by evening, the story had made its way into local news feeds. Teen wrongly accused of shoplifting at Pinehill Market. Jamal sat on the edge of his bed, scrolling through the storm of reactions. His hands trembled as he read the comments. "This is heartbreaking. That boy could have been my son. Why is it always the same story? Innocent kid, rushed judgment, humiliation. Someone needs to hold that manager accountable." But there were cruel voices too. Bet he was guilty. They just didn't catch him this time. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The word stung like salt in an open wound. Jamal threw his phone aside and buried his face in his hands. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't wanted to be a symbol. All he had wanted was to buy pencils. Meanwhile, across town, Pinehill Market's manager sat in his office, sweating through his shirt. The phone rang nonstop. Angry customers, boycotts threatened, reporters demanding statements. Outside the store, a small crowd gathered with signs, "Justice for Jamal" and "Stop Racial Profiling." Even Richards, who had strutted so confidently the night before, now avoided the cameras. His arrogance had backfired spectacularly. Back at school, Jamal braced himself for ridicule, but something unexpected happened. When he walked through the hallway, students stepped aside, not with disdain, but with respect. A few clapped softly. Others patted his back. "You handled it, man." One classmate said quietly, "Most of us wouldn't have kept our cool like that." Jamal blinked, stunned. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. The shame he had carried began to shift into something else, something heavier, but also more powerful. That evening, Mrs. Green visited Jamal's home. She sat across from his mother at the kitchen table, her cane leaning against a chair. "Your boy is strong," she said, her voice warm but firm. "But strength like that shouldn't go unnoticed. This is bigger than him now, bigger than me. We need to make sure what happened doesn't get swept under the rug." Jamal looked up. "But what can I do? I'm just a kid." Mrs. Green smiled gently. "Sometimes it takes the courage of just a kid to change a whole community." The following week, a community meeting was held at the town hall. Parents, students, activists, and even some of the police officers involved gathered. Jamal sat nervously on stage beside Mrs. Green. When his turn came to speak, his throat tightened. "I'm not here to point fingers," he began, his voice unsteady. "I just want to say that what happened to me shouldn't happen to anyone. I was treated like a criminal before anyone even listened to me. I was embarrassed in front of my community, and I'll never forget how that felt. But I know I'm not the first. And if nothing changes, I won't be the last." The room went silent. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Jamal's mother wiped tears from her eyes. From that night onward, Pinehill wasn't the same. The store announced mandatory bias training for all employees. The police department released a statement promising to review its protocols on handling accusations involving minors. And Richards, once the untouchable face of Pinehill Market, quietly resigned. But for Jamal, the most profound change wasn't in policy or reputation. It was in himself. He had found his voice, and in speaking up, he had discovered that people would listen. Weeks later, he walked past the store again. This time, no one stopped him. No one watched him with suspicion. And yet, the memory lingered. The cold steel cuffs, the flashing lights, the whispers of the crowd. Mrs. Green's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes it takes the courage of just a kid to change a whole community. Jamal wasn't sure if he had changed the world, but he knew one thing for certain. The world would never forget his story.